Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voice Like a Lion podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Pemberton, and today I have on someone who I'm really fascinated to talk to. I mean, it's been like months in the works to get this guy on the show. So today I'm here with Joey. Joey is the founder and CEO at Baronfig. He's also apparently the author of a #1 bestseller with The Laws of Creativity. He's probably made about $101 bazillion, and he has an awesome haircut and a cool shirt on, and he drinks about 2.5 gallons every single day. And yes, I'm exaggerating some of these things, but you can pick out which ones I'm not. So, Joey, welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up, Stephen, man? Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat. We actually started chatting. And yes, I drink 100 ounces. You drank 128 ounces for, what
Yes,
was it, 75 days?
75 days straight. Yep,
Every day? Oh, my God, man. Yeah,
every
so we
single
were
day.
just talking about how intimately we know the ceiling and the floor and
The
the walls of our
facilities.
bathrooms. Yes. But I'm ready to chat, dude. I'm excited to just relax in this
Yeah,
Monday at 12:10 Central Time.
absolutely. Yeah. So, outside of drinking a crap load of water every single day, what does a normal day look like for you?
Yes. Well, hello everybody out there. Like Steven said, I founded Baronfig and I wrote The Laws of Creativity. But I'm actually like business is not my first thing. It's just a means. I'm a designer under the hood, and my like whole blah 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 is that I've done. I've art directed and designed over 100 products from zero to launch, so zero to market, and sold them all over the last 11 years. So that's kind of where I brought the book from and do ecom. What do I do on a daily basis, man? It's a crapshoot every single day. I'm sure you hear that from folks. It's like problem solving, but I have kind of um, quarantined my efforts into a triangle with three sides, being things that are new, things that are big, and things that are broken. And I can't remember
Mm,
who the heck recommended that years ago, but it's pretty much what I do nowadays: new, big, and broken.
new, big, and broken. So I love that. I think that this is really cool. Something that you said is you're a designer under the hood. So just background on me, because this is actually our first conversation. You guys are actually sitting in on our first conversation. So for me, my wife and I have founded two different e-commerce stores. Both of them went over 7 figures in their first 12 months, from ideation to 12 figure, or not 12 figures. That'd be incredible, but to 7 figures.
Yeah,
So with that being
that's
said,
awesome.
is we also have worked with just an absolute amazing amount of ecom brand owners and just different sizes. But at the same time, I'm really interested to get your point of view on this. So, me and my business partner, we have one point of view, and I would love to understand from someone who is extremely creative and someone who is a great designer. Because I've already looked at your website, I've looked at the site architecture, I've looked at the products, and they're amazing. Is for someone who is a great designer, have you ever run into times where you let the design get in the way of the strategy, where it's like my stuff is so great that everyone will find
Okay.
it because I made it?
So that is an awesome question. And I feel like that's your typical quote unquote creatives approach. It's almost like, what is it, the field of dreams? If you build it, they will come.
Yep.
Yeah, no, not really though. Like that's not how anything outside of Worlds with Kevin Costner work. So when I first started Baron Fig, I was aware of this. I was like, okay, I cannot let, even though I am a designer first, I can't let design dictate everything. I have to be more than a designer. So it's this juggling. So how did that manifest? Well, our first website for Baron Fig was ugly as sin, and I knew it. Okay, and like I had, normally would work on a project just design for literally hundreds of hours to make it super beautiful. But I knew that if I did that, I would neglect everything else, the actual branding, the language, the marketing, all that stuff. So I actively, from the beginning, 11 or 12 years ago, made the choice to not make design my first my first love, even though fellow designers were like kind of talking behind my back, like, look at this brand is ugly as hell, dude. And I had to be okay with that.
I think that, so the reason why I brought that up, there was a client that we had, and had being keyword is, so we were working with the founder. So there was co-founders in this company, and one was very much business minded, strategic minded, and the other one was the designer. And the designer has worked with amazing clientele like Beyonce and Madonna and Gwen Stefani, some pretty big names, and a whole lot more than that. And so one of the leading indicators that there was something amiss was the fact that we had only talked to him. So it was a married couple. We had only talked to him for 7 months. So then we were talking on a larger capacity of like, partnering with them, help them scale, do all those things.
Sure.
And he brings his wife on the call, and she's like, I don't need you guys. I'm not willing to give up any equity. I can take this brand from where we're at, which was only like 30K a month, to $5 million in the next 18 months. I can do it by myself. And it's like, you've been in business 7 years. Your stuff is cool. Your stuff is great. It's like, but just because your stuff is great does not mean that's going to equivalent to more business. And that was the unfortunate thing, was because she couldn't see past her designs, because she's an excellent designer and she's been given all these awards and
Oh,
she's
she
had
was
all
the
this
designer.
PR. She was a designer, yeah.
Gotcha.
And she's getting flown around the world to create like custom one-off pieces for all these people, for all these celebrities. It's like, she, in my opinion, had let that get in the way of seeing the business for what the business
Ego,
was.
baby.
Yeah.
Gotta love that ego. Yeah, man. I have a mantra that I've said for the last 10 years to the team, which is nobody gives a shit about us. Okay? Nobody cares. I'm an
Yeah.
award-winning designer with the #1 fucking book on Amazon. Can I curse? Am I allowed to curse on
Oh
this?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh shit. I just lost you. Are you
No, you're
frozen
fine.
or am I frozen?
No, you can keep going. So the cool thing with this is you can just literally keep talking even if I am frozen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know how it works. So it records locally. All right, got you. Yeah, nobody gives a shit about awards that I've won or how badass, my branding is, or the partners or whatever the fuck, because at the end of the day, like, someone comes to my site, they're not buying Joey Cofone. They're buying the pen or the notebook. Like, and it's they're hiring that product to do a job, right? That's what, people always say. So, yeah, that's hilarious, and like just the worst way to go about it. So I do want to do a little defense of designers in general. Like, they're not all like that. I'll just say
Right.
that. Like, there are designers who know what they're doing, and then there's designers who really only care about design, and that's okay as long as you have someone funneling their efforts correctly. Like, I got some friends who, like, I used to live in New York City for 15 years, and we'd walk down the street and they would be like, wow, look at that typeface, look at those colors. And I get that, like, that's cool, but at the end of the day, what is that selling me? What is that business model? Because it's only a means. So yeah, all designers are different, but I'm, I'm
Yeah.
i'm more of the, like, if I am not making money, I don't care about it, like, how beautiful it is.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm glad that you threw in those 2 cents, because I think there's a buddy of mine. He's actually was on the podcast, and he knows this. He's also a creative. He's also a designer. And so he's exited 2 different companies. So I asked him, it's like, okay, so how do you do what you love and nothing else? He's like, well, I just do what I love and hire everything else. He's like, I'm never the CEO. He said, I'm always a designer. He said, so I hire everyone is technically above me. I just own the thing. And he said, I just get to focus on every single day what I enjoy, and then they get to direct the business. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. That makes sense to me. So I think
Well,
that
yeah,
it's just
I
about.
aspire to that. I
But I think
aspire to that.
what you said was really, really smart, though, is like ego. And this is something that I've seen make or break businesses. I was talking to a gentleman where he's worked with, he's working with 5 brands right now that he helped scale from, I think they were close to zero to over $100 million a year right now. So pretty decent sized brands. And he said the biggest things that keeps them from getting there is their ego. It's the mindset. It's how they view the business. It's how they view hiring people. It's how they view people in general. And he was walking me through all that, because I'm not doing 100 million a year right now. And I was like, that makes sense. And I think that, I mean, I've just seen it time and time and time again, whether in corporate, when I used to be in corporate for 5.5 years, in our own businesses, is I've realized, well, it's like, oh, shoot, the reason why this thing isn't growing at the speed that I wanted to is like, I'm probably in the way of something. And I just have to
Yep.
learn how to remove myself. So over time, because you said you had this triangle, how have you seen that triangle, implementing that triangle, help you move out of the way or help your business move quicker?
I mean, everybody comes to me constantly and they'll, like, lay out the problem. They'll say maybe a couple of, like, potential solutions, and then they look at me like, okay, what should we do? And that's the road that forks. People with
Mm,
the ego who are in charge want to then make the call. My statement is always, well, what do you think we should do? I don't know shit about this part of the business. That's why you're here. Give me your strong recommendation. And so I always bounce it back. And I think that's probably a reflection of the approach, which is like the fewer decisions that I need to make, the better. I think the healthier the business because
Yeah.
the folks are in place to do it. So I don't know if that directly answers your question, but
No, it
that's like the
does.
first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, 'cause it answers my question because it makes me think of this other business owner where he has this thing. It's called a 131 rule, and I really like this. Where it's, let's say that you and I were working together, and I came to you and I was like, Joey, I don't know how to figure out this paid marketing. Like, paid marketing freaking sucks. Like, Meta just changed, and now they're doing this freedom of speech stuff, and now we've lost half our traffic. I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? And you go, I don't know, Steven. What's your 131? It's like, well, then I had to go away and actually identify what's the actual big problem. It's like, I'm
Wait, tell
saying
me
that
what
it's a
the one
whole.
three one is.
Yeah, so I
I'm
am. So
familiar.
I'll walk you through it. So
Oh, sorry,
it's
sorry.
it's like one big problem. Like, what's the actual problem? So you're just saying everything's on fire, everything's awful. It's like, no. What's the one big problem? Well, the one big problem is that Meta ads are more expensive. Okay, that's one big problem. What are your three solutions to that one big problem? It's like, is it better creatives? Is it better copywriting? Is it hiring influencers? Or is it something way outside the box? And then what's the one thing that you think or what's the one thing you're going to do right now to fix it? So the 131 is like, then I would come back to you. It's like, hey, Joey, I don't need your input on this anymore because figured out this is actually the big problem. Here's what the three solutions I laid on the table. And then it's like, out of these three, I picked this one because I think that it has the highest likelihood of fixing it. Okay, great. So now you had to do nothing as a CEO. It's like, great, good job, Steven. Amazing.
Yeah, nice
so
work,
glad.
Man. Let's all pat ourselves on the back.
Yep.
No, that's great. I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, we definitely emphasize like you. I don't mind if you come to me with problems, but come to me with some solutions too.
Yeah.
And like opinions, really. And but then you also have to caveat with folks and be like, hey, look, if you just can't figure it out, like don't sit on it too, right? Because then you could accidentally create an environment where people are like, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm not going to say shit. So it is a fine line. And I think being, if we talk like a little bit about leadership, I think
for sure
having the ability to make an environment in which failure is fine, like fucking up is cool, like who cares? So my wife and I were talking about this recently because she hears me talking for years. We all work from home. And one thing she noticed that we mentioned is that I will, on our Monday meeting, which I lead every Monday, we'll start with apologies and fuck ups. So like if I screw something up, like I was like, hey guys, I was totally wrong about this thing, blah, blah, blah. And so what that does is just kind of lead by example. I mean, none of this is rocket science, right? But it's a lot of things that most people don't do. And so then it shows people, wow, if he screws up, I can too. And like, it's not a big deal as long as you're not a hypocrite.
Yeah. So what do you do? I would love to get your insight on this. Let's say I was working for you and I gave you that. We'll go back to my scenario of my 131. And it was your paid let's say it was the Meta paid marketing channel. And I go in and it's like, you know what? This is what I think we're really going to fix. This is the one big thing is I'm just going to turn off all the ads. And you go, wait a minute, this has cost me $50,000. Let's say I mess it up and it was a 50 grand mess up. How would you react to me messing it up like that?
Okay. Well, there's did you already do it?
Yeah, I already did it. Like, it's too late. Now we had to go turn everything back on and just that 50K is gone.
Okay. I mean, first I would want to say like, hey, why did you turn the ads off? Like what due diligence did you do? Did you make a spreadsheet? Like, what did you find that you did such a drastic move? This is fucking ironic, dude, actually, because 2 years ago, we had problems with Meta ads, and the team at Baronfig, who was in charge of couldn't figure it out, and I went to them and I was like, yo, guys, turn off all the fucking ads. Because the way you guys are operating it, we're going to make more profit dollars without you just blowing our money than not. So I am intimately familiar with this scenario. Like, this happened. And we made more money after we turned off the ads until we like obviously reconfigured our approach. So I'm like, yeah, dude, you turned off the ads. So if you did actually screw up and cost me 50K, the first thing would be like, okay, are we back on track, right? Like, is the fire out? Are we still bleeding or not? And then second, be like, let's sit down and figure out where the mistake was made so that we don't make this mistake again. And that's happened before. I mean, I've had people make, easily $50,000 mistakes, $250,000 mistakes, right? So it's just about understanding, helping them understand what they did and at what point that mistake was made so that we prevent it. And if they either, and then of course more forks in the road. So either they understand it and they're like, hey, you know what? I should have done this or that. Like, you're right. Or wow, that was a good exercise. Cool. They've learned, they've grown. But if you have people who still deny or blame or say it wasn't me, cool. They can go work somewhere else.
That makes sense to me. That's really good. And I think that that's almost a masterclass in how to do leadership, though, because I think I've just seen it with less money on the table and people just blow up. It's like, this is what I would do is I would just cuss them out. And that's the best way to solve this problem. It's like, but you don't know why they did that in the first place. So you're not actually
Yeah.
solving,
Oh, yeah.
you're not actually solving anything. You're just sugarcoating it, honestly. Because they're just going to make that same mistake again because they're going to cover it up next time. Like this time,
Exactly.
they're at least willing to come to you and be like, hey, man, I was at least able to come to Joey and be like, hey, dude, I screwed this up and I cost you 50K. I'm so sorry. Now what? And the cool thing is, if you treat me in that way, it's like, okay, what was your thought process? Like, why did you make this choice? It's like, well, I did some analytics and I was looking at it and I put it in the spreadsheet and I thought, this was the best choice that I could make at the time. And then, well, come to find out I was wrong. Is you like, okay, I understand it. What are you going to do different? It's like, well, this is what I'll do different because I'm already beating myself over it if I'm coming to you. But it's like if I come to you and you're just chewing me out and you're giving me down the road, it's like the next time I mess up like that, it's like, oh no, I'm just going to hide this and hope that nobody finds it.
You hit the nail on the head. Like there's two key things there. Number one, you're teaching people not to show you their mistakes and so they can get fixed. And number two, then you're creating an environment where people are afraid to take risks. So everything is safe. And then, I mean, I don't know about you, but business doesn't really grow under like a safe approach.
Yep.
There's calculated risks that need to be taken. So in terms of leadership and screw ups, I mean, that's natural. Unless you are perfect and you never screw up, then how can you expect other people to be perfect?
Yeah, which is not realistic. I think there's something you said right there is key, though, is being willing to take risk. I think that because I've seen this from venture-backed startups is they don't want to take risks because maybe they just got an influx of a couple $1,000,000 and they're afraid of how to deploy that money. So they're doing like safe bets. They go and they try to hire the best people to go run their ads, the best people to make their website, the best people to do all the things. So they're hemorrhaging a ton of money, but they're able to go to their board basically and be like, look at what we're doing. And so that's what I've seen is that's the safer approach because they want to be able to make a return on their investment, which I just think that you're hamstringing what could be an incredible business. I think that there's a time and a place for raising funds, but I think if you're a bootstrap founder, we bootstrapped everything. Is when you bootstrap, you had to get creative, you had to get scrappy, you got to figure it out. You have to take risk if you're going to make enough money to pay the bills. Like there's no choice, and there's just a certain aspect of that I feel like certain times gets missed from people who they just try to play it safe.
Absolutely, dude. I mean, now we're talking about venture-backed companies. Like I think they're just goofy. Like just the word is goofy, okay? Because I've been in business for over a decade. I lived and operated in New York City. I've rubbed shoulders with all sorts of VC founders and VC venture capitalists themselves, and we've collaborated with venture companies. And dude, the inefficiencies are mind-boggling. Like my co-founder always said, like, "Hey, man, when they've raised that much money, they have to spend it." Yep. And so what they do is like they had introduced inefficiencies left and right. Like, oh, a big team equals better everything, which is not true. And so, like our team at the time was like 10, was outperforming, a collaborator that we worked with that had a team of 20 just working with us on a tiny piece. When our whole company was 10. And the amount of screw ups that they made was so funny that like it was just we just collaborated with them and kept going because it was so entertaining. Anyway, I clearly have an opinion there on VC, but some companies do break through, of course.
I mean, I'm of the same approach. There's actually I wouldn't call them, they're definitely not a startup, but they're doing about $30 million a year. And what's fascinating is because of how they did it, which is more in-person retail, is they wanted they wanted to expand online. So I came in and was consulting with them for a period of time, and I'm just like, how did you guys make any of this money? Because there was a time in person they made $500,000 in 2 days, and that was only selling for a couple hours a day. And I went, okay, so how do we mimic that online? It's like, no, we don't want to do that. We want to have these things. And it was just crazy. It's like you have all this funding behind you, so you don't get scrappy. You don't actually look at what worked best.
Sure.
You don't look at best practices. There's no first principles. They're just kind of there. And so they just find the cheap. And it was crazy. It's like you guys have all this other funding, and you want to find the cheapest option to just get something up and running. And it doesn't convert the way that you expect it to. And then you're upset. It's like, well, what did you think?
Yeah. I mean, like if you think of a non-funded company, man, every day's survival.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't sell, there's a expiration date on your business. You know, if you raise money, I mean, yeah, there's, you know, of course, the end of the runway at some point, but like you're going to get paid, jobs are there. It's just
Yeah.
such a different, like I think it's low pressure in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So you don't get scrappy.
I think one of the most fascinating things. This is something. So going back, bless you. So going back to the conversation we were having a little bit earlier, is like with this one brand that they had the designer who designed all sorts of stuff for all these celebrities. Is the thing that he was actually best at. So the other co-founder was networking. This dude just randomly walked into he randomly went to an event and met the co-founder of Google, like just randomly, and they hung out and they flew him to Mexico and all these things just to hang out. So Sergey Brin, and so I'm just like, dude, why would you not just go raise money? Because like that's what he wanted to do anyways. It's like, why would you just scrap everything else you're doing right now? Because it's really not doing anything, and just go do that. I think that there's a certain level of like for him is he didn't have to even give up that much equity because these are his friends. He's not going to a venture back. He's not going to a VC fund or anything. And then there's another example where there's a buddy of mine that he's already raised 12 million. And he's on the campaign trail again for another 15 million, and he needs it by March. And I'm just like, dang, what is that life like? And he said, well, I'm just trying to go as big as humanly possible as fast as I can. And he said, if I don't get this by, I think it was March 4th, which is my son's birthday, is he goes, we're dead. And I go, that's fascinating. I was like, that's a fascinating way to live. He's like, yeah, but it's kind of fun. And I just think it's like, okay, whatever. If you want to go that route, that's cool.
Yeah. I talked to a buddy we went the route of VC, and I started questioning him about it, and I forget exactly how we got on the subject, but his answer I'll never forget, which was, I don't really care if it succeeds because I get paid either way.
That's true.
I was like, damn, dude, but like, is that it? Is that all it's about? I don't know. I mean, everybody's different.
Everybody is different, but yeah, and I guess it just depends on who you are. I mean, there's the guy who did I think it was called the Fire Festival. I told my wife this. It's like the dude who did the Fire Festival is he found a way to scam some of the biggest celebrities in the world. And I said, so they pay all this money. They show up. He raised, I don't even remember. It was like millions and millions of dollars. They show up and they get a tent and a ham sandwich. It's like, that's crazy. And the thing is he can't.
Maximus.
But the thing is then he went to jail, right? He gets out and he's raising again right now for another Fire Festival.
Too. Yeah,
he's already raised $250,000. And I went, so it's like, you can't tell me you have to be a good businessman to raise money. You don't have to have this amazing pitch deck. And you have to I've got all these board of advisors, and here's this guy who worked at Yahoo. And it's like, no one cares. Like, if you actually know how to talk to people, this dude literally went to jail. Like, if there was anyone that shouldn't be able to raise money, it's that guy. And he's already raised $250,000. Like, how?
That's his skill. It's like, that's what he's good at, raising money.
Yes.
It's like people who are famous.
Yeah.
People who are famous are good at becoming famous. Not necessarily good at the thing they do. Like, the best chef is not the most famous chef. The best chef is probably someone we have no idea of, right? Just doing their good shit in some restaurant. But people who are famous are good at becoming famous. And it's like this weird thing where we equate fame with skill, right? Or we equate the ability to raise money with the quality of the result, right? And they're not actually tied. We are falsely equating them. To bring it to e-com, a simple principle would be like, price on the internet is equated to quality.
Yep.
Where, like, in the consumer's eyes, when it's not actually. But like, the higher priced product must be better quality when you're shopping online, right? So So these weird connections that we make that are not true.
Yeah, the psychological nature of it all. I remember I heard somebody talk about this study where they had three different wines in front of somebody, and then they blindfolded them. So they let them see. It's like this wine is $30, this wine is $100, this one's $1,000, and they blindfolded them. They said this is the one that's $30. They taste each one, and pretty much unanimously they picked the one that was most expensive. And come to find out, they're all the same. And it's just crazy to me that the psychological nature
Oh yeah.
of people, because this is something that I found even for me with that one client I was talking about is they said, yeah, times are just so hard right now. It's like you just had a dude place a $14,000 offer that came through one of your paid marketing campaigns. It's like I'm pretty sure times aren't that hard if this dude just randomly sees an ad and drops 14K on product. And like
Oh yeah.
that's the thing that's crazy. Like the psychological nature of human beings is just that one lever makes people think that your stuff is just way better.
Yeah, we're just highly influenced by so much, and the problem is most people will not admit it, and so
Mm,
those are the folks who are most influenced.
yeah.
Whereas people who understand it and accept it can kind of navigate it, but we're not. No one's invincible from it.
Yeah. So how do you
Human
navigate
beings, man.
that? Like if you're sitting there and let's say that 'cause I'm sure that you have good in-house teams now. But let's say towards the beginning when you were maybe looking at agencies to do certain parts of your business, it's like, how did you avoid those things where it's like, oh, you're the most expensive option, so you've definitely got to be the best, and you have 2,000
Oh yeah,
testimonials
yeah,
of
yeah.
people
I
that
mean,
are okay.
we have like a little bit of a process for this actually. So first of all, whenever we're hiring someone, first we do it ourselves, no
Mm.
matter how painful, to learn it enough to speak the language. So you can't like trick us basically. And then second of all, we hire folks who tie their compensation to the results.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so the more willing someone is to tie their compensation or a portion of their compensation to results, the more likely it is that they can actually perform.
Yeah. So with someone who approached you, what did that look like? A profit share opportunity, a rev share opportunity, or like a what did that look like for you? That was like, oh yeah, that. Or was there a guarantee? It's like, hey, if we don't add an extra 10K to your top line in the next 90 days, we'll give you the whole thing
Yeah.
back.
I mean, I've heard it all, man. I mean, I get emails
Yeah.
like 20 emails an hour. It feels like.
Oh yes, I understand.
I mean, people are I don't trust anyone who's like, if it doesn't work at all, we don't get paid. Like, no, then you don't value your time at all.
Yep.
So, like, to me, I think the right combination is like, hey, it costs a moderate fee for our time, but like, we really don't start making money that's worth it to us unless you do too. Like, so,
Yep.
somewhere there's a win-win in there, without it being, if it's too good to be true, right? It probably is, that kind of thing. So that's
Yeah.
my outlook on it. But then I ask people a ton of questions, and I go do my research, and I do all the diligence required before I bring someone on.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where where do you see? I mean, you've been in business over a decade now, and so where do you see the next? I won't even say the next 10 years. No one has any idea where they'll be in the next 10 years exactly. But where do you see over the course of 2025, especially with new things going into place like tariffs and everything else? What do you think that any of that will impact you, and if so, better or worse? What's your thoughts right now?
I mean, everything getting more expensive in my mind is always going to be worse
Yeah.
for us. Folks who sell shit on the internet have the big hurdle of trying to convince you without allowing you to feel it, touch it, use it, test it, anything like that. And so, there's a time frame by which someone would convert, and that's relative to price. The lower the price, the easier it is to convert.
Yep.
The higher the price, the longer they decide, the more work they do, the more money you may have to pay for that conversion. Also, so like in our industry, it's a really straightforward answer for me to say, hey, yeah, higher prices equal more challenges across the board. But I don't know. At the end of the day, like if it's happened, the one question is if it happens to everybody, does the consumer accept it quickly? Do they accept it reluctantly? That's kind of the only question mark. But eventually, I mean, look at prices since COVID, right? Prices went up. COVID challenges disappeared. Prices stayed up.
Yep.
because people accept them. So again, we go back to psychology, and it's like where are folks' psychology at any given moment? Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm not excited about our
Yeah.
costs going up ever, right? What are you seeing? Like, how are people feeling right now in your world?
So there's two different people that have been speaking to me. Is this people who they're running their own brands, and there's people who are also agencies helping these brands. And it's interesting that the conversation's a little bit different. Where the conversation with the ones who are the agency owners, let's just say, is they're curious to. They ask me, it's like, what do you think is going to be the biggest impact that you see with, because TikTok's up in the air. It's like, is this thing going to stay around? Is it not? With Meta, now that they're changing up a lot of their policies, like, hey, what is this going to do? And it'd be easy for me to say it's good, bad, or it's indifferent, but at the same time, same thing I tell everyone on that spectrum. It's like, we're going to have to wait and see, because we don't know for sure yet what that's actually going to do. When it comes to the tariffs and everything else and costs going up, I mean, that's just, I think it's about finding ways to innovate. So it's like the incremental change. So it's like, is there a way for you to do the same thing that you've been doing and maybe not pass on the cost to the customer? Or if you are passing on the cost to the customer, are they getting something better in retrospect of that product, like for them to get that same kind of product but it's a little bit better? One good example is eggs. Right now, it's just incredible what my wife and I were having this conversation. It was like $10 for 2 dozen eggs, and that's the most we've seen eggs be in a very long time. And when I go get eggs, it's making me as a consumer have a different conversation. Where, okay, if I'm going to spend $10 for 2 dozen eggs, is it worth it to me to do that when I could go just buy some already pre-made protein shakes and I'm getting more protein per
Mm.
morning as if I would have done this? So now I'm asking myself questions. So it's the same thing as if you're selling a product or service. It's like, okay, when I talked to you last year, it would cost me $3,000 a month to do this marketing, but now all of a sudden you say it's going to be 34 or 50 because they're, inflation. It's like, but you're, for the agency owner, it's like, you really didn't, there wasn't really a lot of stuff changed for you. And on top of that, it's like, if you are a product brand, is okay, let's say it's costing you, your cost of goods has went up 10 cents. That shouldn't equivalent to $1 more for every 10-cent increment. So
Sure.
it's like, could you have taken a little bit of a hit to your margins to keep that price the same? Especially with buyer psychology, it's like, wow, that brand kept their prices the same when everyone. Arizona Tea is a great example. Arizona Tea, Costco, Arizona Tea, they kept their prices at like $1.29,
Yeah.
and the guy's a multi-millionaire because he's done it. And then the same
Okay,
time
but
with
that
Costco's
only
hot dog.
means,
Go
dude,
ahead.
that guy, the Arizona tea must have started out costing them a penny to make to begin with.
Exactly. Yes. Now people
Like,
aren't
so
having
you're
that
not
conversation.
right, right, right. That's the real deal. Is like this shit cost nothing to begin with. We were being overcharged for 20 years. Now it's actually maybe reasonably margined. But yeah,
Yes.
I feel you. I feel you. The real answer in terms of like your costs going up and then what do you pass on and what do you not? I think like another boring answer, but is true, is you A/B test your price, right? You
Yeah.
do price testing. Like, okay, I don't want to. What do I want? Like, I want to sell my product, and this is simple honesty. I want to sell my product for as much as I possibly can. Consumer wants to buy a product they trust for as little as possible, right?
Yeah.
So there's an axis there. There's a crossover, and so you A/B test that and see what that is at any given point. And if costs go up, you're still A/B testing because yeah, maybe if prices go up, cost goes up 10 cents. Cool. So you charge 20 cents more, right? And you keep it even. Um, but maybe sales go down 30%. Okay, so what if I only increase 10 cents, covered the cost without any more profit, and then sales go down 5%? Well, that's like
Yeah. It's worth it then.
do the math, right? So I mean, everything comes so boring, but everything comes down to a
I love it.
spreadsheet. Right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's how I operate, right? Decisions are usually mathematical in
Yep.
nature, right? And the spreadsheet is like your best friend. So I don't know. A lot of problems do in this realm do solve themselves just by doing the math.
Yeah, which I think is what most people miss. Is That's what I love about e-commerce, is it's very data driven. if you let it be. I think that that's the big thing is you can see, okay, this is how much traffic I'm getting. This is how many people are hitting my website. This is how many people are going to this product page. This is how many people are converting.
Mm-hmm.
This is what my cost to acquire a customer is. This is what my average order value is. This is over the course of a year. This is how much stuff this person is buying. So the
Mm-hmm.
lifetime value, all those things.
Exactly.
And yeah, so I just think, and that's my thing with people who don't want to track their metrics. It's like you're missing out on huge gains. And then
you know
go
people
ahead.
who like
Oh
are
yeah.
anti-metric,
Oh dude.
anti-effort,
Yes. Yes.
anti-money.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Oh yes.
Anti-success.
This is why we've gone up market. Like, so we started again. My wife and I took our e-commerce stores from 0 to over 7 figures, 12 months, right? And so we're like, okay, cool. We want to work with startups. That was the worst decision we ever made because these people are like, okay, I've got $100 and I've got $100 total to create my business. It's like, oh, I don't know how you're gonna
$100 and I want $1 million.
Yeah, but that's the kind of conversations that we ran into. Those are just the kind of people who would come to us. Like, seriously, they would say, okay, we saw what you did. You were making content around it. So we want to do that same thing. I got $100 and, I'm working at Starbucks part-time. Do you think I could do it? It's like, probably not.
Just for asking the question, no. Like already you're thinking wrong. Like you're not made for this. Yep. Period. I mean, that's brutal. That's brutal. But yeah, I'm with you, dude. 100%. I'm with you.
Yeah, I mean so going up market and talking to people who have been able to scale up their brands closer to $5 million and above. It's like you had to get there, and it's not by accident. Like you had to make some informed decisions. You have to understand your data to a certain degree. Sure, there's still gaps, and that could just be a leadership gap. Maybe you don't know how to take care of your team. You're taking a lot of that load on yourself. And if you can figure out how to work through your people, you can go from 5 to 10 because you're able to delegate out that work. But yeah, if they aren't tracking data, this is real. Like there was people that they were making 30, 40K a month, and they just said, well, they were making $40,000 a month. I remember them exactly right now. And they said, well, we have to be profitable because we spend this much on ads, we make this many sales, and then we have money in the bank accounts. Like you're actually losing money because they're at their overall return on investment was on their paid marketing, which was their only way that they were getting customers, was at 1.01. It's like, so including your cost of goods, you were losing money. And they went, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. It's like, you're losing money. And then all of a sudden it hit them all at once where they realized that their debt to income ratio was not correct. And they all of a sudden basically had a call on all of their stuff. And they're just like, oh, shoot. All their debt hit them at once. And they go, we don't know what to do. And they're trying to get loans and trying to figure it all out because they didn't know how to actually look at their metrics. And so they just tried to add a whole crap load of products. So like, this is what's going to save us if we just add a whole bunch more offerings. And realistically, 99.9% of their sales came from one product. And I just told them, why would you not focus on the one product that's making you money instead of adding on a whole bunch more SKUs that no one asked for? And they were like, well, that makes sense. No one's buying it. It's like, well, of course not. They don't want it. And I think that people make such emotional, guttural decisions on something that they like or they think that other people will like instead of go ask somebody. Like you guys are making 2,000-3,000 sales. You guys have made 4,000 sales in the last year. Go talk to your customers. Do you want this? Yes or no? No, great. Now I don't have to make it.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been doing this right for a while, so I've definitely made those mistakes. The question is like, how far do you let yourself get into the mistake before you correct it, recognize it, accept it, all that stuff? So we're all, like we said at the beginning, like we all make mistakes. Our employees, team members, we do, but it's how long you can avoid sitting in that mistake. So what are the top 3 mistakes or like philosophical, fundamental, wrong approaches that you see e-com founders or leaders doing?
Oh, great question. So I would say one of the biggest ones is they think what got them from 0 to $1 million is what's going to get them from 1 million to 10. That's not the same approach. And so with that being said, there's a guy we ran into, he was halfway there. He was at 5 million. He had gone from 1 to 3 to 5 in the matter of those 3 years. So he had scaled pretty quick, but he thought what got him to 5 was going to get him to 10 in the same time frame. So we thought he was going to double again. And we sat there and we worked with him. We talked to him, and that wasn't the case. He was on track to stay about 5.5. But his mindset was that he was just going to do it. So he kind of did the venture back route that we talked about earlier without raising capital, where he just hired the best agencies he could find So where he brought us in is we came in and we consulted with him. We went and talked to the agencies, looked over their stuff, and he was spending $15,000 a month just in fees, and they were doing nothing. And I told him, I said, hey man, this is my my opinion, but based on what the results you're getting, you should probably cut these people loose and find other people, because he didn't even understand. He got almost a little too much of an ego, because he thought that what had got him there was going to get him to 10. And the reason why it would get him to 10 was because he was just so good at what he did. And I would ask him just normal questions. Okay, how many ads are you running? I don't know. Well, how much money are you spending every month in ads? Well, I'm not sure. Okay, how much money have you made off ads? I don't know. It's like, these are normal questions. Like, these aren't crazy questions. It's like, okay, for your SEO, it's like for your SEO agency, it's like, what do you, what kind of keywords are you ranking for? I don't know. Have they fixed your backlinks or any of that stuff? No. Okay, so they're doing nothing. Like, they haven't done anything yet. And he because he didn't understand it, he started to get upset at me. It's like, no, look at the data. Don't trust my word. Here's the data. Here is your ads. Here is your ads manager. Here is your stuff. This is what you're missing. And I think that ego plays a huge role into it. So even what you said earlier, ego is a big one. And I think because of ego, this even carries over into the second one, is they don't know how to trust people that they hire. So whether that is agencies, whether that's in-house teams, they have such a big ego that's like, well, I did this myself. Let's say that they were someone who was very data-driven. They were great at paid marketing. Then they bring someone in-house. It's like, well, you suck. Why did I even bring you in? I'm going to fire you because you're not doing it as good as I did. It's like, but now you have more time to work on the business, but you're so focused that you'd rather work in the business. And so I think really all three of these answers are just going to be ego. I think ego is the biggest thing.
Ego. Yeah. But if we pick that apart, it's believing the past will predict the future.
Yeah.
Not trusting your teammates and not looking at data. Like, those are definitely three really strong.
And I think especially reasons, because of some of the ways that so it's also exactly the first one you said, looking at the past and using that as a predictive measure for the future. There's a brand that they're doing $200,000 a month in one product only on Amazon. And sure, maybe you do want to scale that up, but if it's a platform, so it's also being one platform centric. If anything changes, you're dead. And so the thing is that this goes across the board. If you're one sales channel centric, if you're only running paid marketing and you're only doing meta ads and the meta ads die, you're dead. So if you're only doing influencers and all of a sudden the influencers that you've been using, they stop working as well as they have been, you're dead. So it's like, this is where I think diversification I think it's warped. So people will say, well, you got to diversify your income streams. You got to have 10 different streams of income to become a millionaire and all these things. But realistically, it's having one thing and then diversifying inside of the one thing. So if you're only running paid traffic through Meta, maybe you explore Google. Maybe you explore SEO to have more organic search. Maybe you explore having better social media presence. Maybe you explore TikTok while it's still around. Maybe you explore different channels. It's like, okay, you're doing great using Shopify, WooCommerce, whatever. You have great streams there. You have a pretty closed ecosystem, so you have all their emails or SMS. You've built a community around your brand. Maybe then you give them another way for them to interact with you. You add on Amazon. But I just think if you become one platform, one channel centric, that's just something I've seen time and time again. Even real example, I had a buddy and he was making $42 million a year, Amazon only. 42 million is pretty good. And what happened was he took all of those earnings and put it into real estate, because the year after he made 42 million, his brand was pretty much gone. And the reason why was because this was in what he said happened was this was 2019, 2020 happens. In 2020, Amazon puts this ruling out there that you can only sell 200 products a month. So the only thing they were allowing to sell on Amazon. SKUs? Yes. Okay. So I'm not even sure it was 200 SKUs. I thought it was 200 items. Like you can only sell 200. And 200 so listings, basically. Yeah. So he ended up losing a ton of money because he wasn't able to have the same amount of products. And so of course we have COVID impacting the suppliers, but it's like you already had this stuff in FBA. It's sitting in their warehouse and they won't ship it. So now this person's business just like gets kneecapped from nothing they even did. Another thing, there was another guy, he was doing 26 million a year and he was selling home decor, and Amazon ends up coming out with their fundamentals or foundations or whatever. They kick him off of Amazon, and then they've basically just taken over his listings. And so he went from making $26 million a year to nothing because he had no other streams. Sure. But if he would have had something else, if he just would have had a Shopify, just would have had another platform to hold on to these people, he could have saved himself. He could have literally went and said, "Hey, so we're no longer on Amazon. This is what happened. This is where this is where we are. You want to find us? Come find us here." And he could have rebuilt, but he was just dead overnight.
Yeah. So I mean, let's say one if you have one channel or your best channel is someone else's platform, that's definitely a dangerous scenario,
Yeah.
right? Because they're the one that holds the keys. But if you have your own platform, like Shopify site, do you feel like that's a much safer bet, or are you still forcing people to do other
No,
types of
that's a
things?
safer. I think that's a safer bet.
Okay, cool.
Because no, I don't think you need to go like hire developers and go headless and make a complete website on your own and have
Sure.
all that stuff. That's definitely not necessary. I believe so. For me, is what I mean is like you don't want to be fully at the command of a TikTok and you're just
Mhm.
doing everything through TikTok shops or Facebook. Like for us, we're doing everything through Facebook shops and Facebook Marketplace. Well, they severed the connection with shipping between Facebook shops and Marketplace, so we immediately lost 30% of our traffic and sales. So in one foul swoop, we lost almost like a huge portion of our business. And then we had to find a way to rebuild it all off site. So we had to rebuild it all on Shopify. But so for me, is it's just not being at the whim of those kind of platforms like
Yeah.
Shopify, WooCommerce, BigCommerce. Yeah, you want to have a place that you can, a hosting platform is one thing, but I think a
Hmm.
sales
Okay.
platform is a different
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, it's like basically a marketplace versus a sales platform. Like
Yeah, 100%.
Shopify, yeah, is one for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've been anti-Amazon for a long time. Just kind of like, it's one thing if I had like, I don't know, a shit ton of brands and products, but if I
yeah,
have one brand, a small amount of like really, best-selling products, and if I put that on Amazon, like I've watched Amazon, I forget what do they call it, getting Sherlocked or something.
yeah.
I think they call that for software, but where Amazon's like, oh, you're doing a really good job. Cool. Let me introduce an Amazon Basics version
Oh,
of you.
yep, yep,
Right. I mean, they're looking at your sales data and
yep,
they're saying, what is the next thing we can copy? And they have all the data, all your sales data.
yep.
They know how much it costs you to make your shit. That's what people do all the time. And the thing that convinced me to really, really think twice was, I believe, Allbirds. Allbirds the sneakers. It was a
Mm-mm.
hot new thing in
No.
like 2017, maybe. Um, all birds, one word, and they had like wool from I don't know Australia or something on the outside. It was really, really nice, and a really new approach to making sneakers. Nice sneakers. And they went and they put their sneakers on Amazon. They did the whole like multi-channel approach. They were making a ton of money, and then Amazon came out with their Amazon Basics wool sneaker, and immediately tanked their sales.
Oh,
And if
yeah,
the Allbirds was like $65, the Amazon one was $55.
yep. See, there's things that
So yeah,
Amazon. It's actually fascinating this Amazon conversation because I had a guy on the podcast last week. His episode will go live in a couple days, but he has one of the biggest Amazon agencies in the world. One out of every 20 purchases that happens on Amazon goes through his agency. And I was asking him all these same questions. He's like, "Yeah, Amazon kind of sucks." And I'm just like, "That's crazy that you're sitting here and you work with all these people." He's like, "Yeah, it's like you got to be very aware of what's happening." He's like, "Do I believe that Amazon is a great place to be? Yes. And you need to find a way to hedge your downside." He's like, "I tell people to go and get their own direct to consumer." He's like, he was just explaining all these different things. And I was just fascinated because I thought that we are going to have a kind of a standoff almost because I
right,
don't, we
right.
were on Amazon. We just, I mean, we did a million alone through Amazon. And like that's cool and all, but it was such a headache dealing with Amazon. And then it was just back and forth, and we'd randomly just get kicked off of listings that were ours. And it's like, what happened? And there's things that Amazon doesn't tell you. And he says this too. It's like, you don't know. See, the thing about Amazon is they can change the rules and not tell you. So all of a sudden you're doing really well, and then now you're not doing well, and you don't know what happened. One of the things that for us that we saw is like, if Amazon has a basics, they will, even if they go out of stock, they still have the number one ranking. They don't lose it like everyone else. Like if you were selling pens and you ran out of stock and you're out of stock for a while, you're going to drop down the search results to a certain degree until you restock and you rebuild that velocity. But not Amazon; they stay number one.
Of course, of course. I mean, it's like a casino. The house is always going to win.
Yeah,
Amazon's always
100%.
going to win.
All right, Joey. We've definitely went over time. I appreciate you asking questions, though. I always love when guests come on here and ask questions, but I do want to be a respecter of your time. Thank you so much, dudes, for coming on the show and hanging out with me. It was a great conversation. I'm glad we finally got it figured out. We had it on the books for a minute, and we had some life stuff. Both of us kind of come up at the same time, and I'm thankful that you were willing to come on the show. We were able to have a great conversation.
Yeah, likewise, Stephen, man. Thank you so much. I forgot I had my little title there, Dude Who Dudes, from a different podcast. But I think I'm going to keep that as my. I'm going to get a little thing on my desk printed out that says
Dude Who
Dudes. It's a
Dudes.
good title. Dude Who Dudes. Anyway,
I love that.
To the folks who listen, thanks for listening, and I appreciate everybody.
Peace. I'm going to let him close it.